Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Kelly Wilhelme, Director of Marketing at Weidert Group. I've hosted a lot of hugs over the years, so happy to have you all here today. Um, we are recording this, so Raian in the live demo part, he's going to fly through some stuff, and you will get the recording. Usually takes us just a day or two to turn it around. So we'll send that out. We'll send an email with some follow-up resources, a PDF of the slide deck, and a link to the recording. So don't worry about taking feverish notes. But if you do have HubSpot open, if you have another screen and want to follow along with us or with Brian, especially in the demo part, I would encourage you to feel free to do that. Open up your HubSpot portal and go to marketing and the AEO tool and follow along. That's a great way to learn. A little bit more just about like background. Why is Wider Group talking about this? Obviously, it's a newer tool in HubSpot that they rolled out, that their acquisition of XFunnel enabled them to have these AEO tools now right inside HubSpot. They acquired XFunnel, which was one of the first tools to roll out with these AEO tracking services about a year ago. And I think at Inbound last year, they announced that or shortly after. And so we've been eagerly awaiting for this tool to be in public beta. It has been since April. So since then, Ryan and I have really been digging in, figuring out what it can do, what its limitations are. There's always pros and cons. And so we'll share with you everything that we've learned today. And feel free to use the chat. Mary, who also helps lead the hug, is going to be monitoring the chat. We don't have a separate Q&A area. Just throw your questions in, and Ryan and I'll pause as we go, and Mary can alert us if there's questions in there that we're not seeing. So with that, Ryan, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. I'm Raian. I'm a data analyst and a client success manager at Weidert. Like Kelly said, we have been actually working on AEO long before HubSpot introduced this tool. It's been a year and a half almost since we have tried to figure out where do men where is Weidert getting mentioned, what platforms and LLMs. So what we did was funny story, we tried to build a tool internally. And when HubSpot came out with this AEO tool, we compared them, and it was actually pretty similar on how both of these tools work, which was pretty exciting for us. So, so that's my experience with AEO, and I'm excited to share how HubSpot's AEO works with everyone here. And yeah, it'll be exciting. I'm excited.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, and I would say we didn't try to build a tool. Ryan did build a really cool tool that we've been using for the last year or so with our clients and helping them navigate what does search visibility look like today. And it's not just, technical SEO anymore. It's also, there's a lot you can do to help your brand be part of the conversation when someone is talking to an LLM, when someone is using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. So we'll dive into that. And if you have questions about Ryan's tool, like if there's something that you were hoping HubSpot could do that doesn't, feel free to ask us about that too, because we've, like he said, we've had it for about a year. And now we're just trying to figure out where the strengths are, and how to use HubSpot's tool to the best of its ability, and then supplement when we need to with a custom tool. So that's where we're at in our process. But really why we're talking about this, what everybody cares about most is what are my buyers doing, right? And the way that buyers are behaving today is much different than it was even just a couple of years ago. I'm sure everybody on this call knows the importance of optimizing for AI search, not just technical, traditional search anymore. So I won't belabor this point, but there is a fundamental difference here that it's not just the mechanics of how the answer engines versus a traditional search engine. It's not just that they behave differently. It's also that your buyers are behaving differently. So keywords are now conversations. Searching is now doing, right? They're actively doing something. They're conversing with that LLM. So instead of They just type a keyword into Google search, and Google decides who wins, what website gets ranked by looking primarily at the authority of that website and the strength of that website. And of course, there's a lot of technical things that go into how it determines that. But that was really what it's based on, was like the authority and the strength of that website. And if you show up in the search results, you win, right? You get that visitor. Well, that's not really what's happening now. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed your organic traffic has really been declining over the last year plus, probably 2 years plus. And so those buyers who arrive from answer engines, the answer that AI is synthesizing is not just coming from your site, which we'll dive into a little more here in detail. But there's a lot of data now that proves it's not coming just from your site. In fact, your site, for good or bad, is a very small percentage of what's impacting those answers. So it's not just about your site and the strength of your site, it's about your brand's presence across the internet. And so this tool, as you'll see, gives you some very concrete suggestions and recommendations and things you can do to improve your likelihood of getting recommended by AI search engines when your buyers are asking important questions. So a little data to back this up. 60% of Google searches now end without a click. I've even seen that number as high as like 68%. Doesn't matter. It's still the vast majority, right? And so you can't rely on that click and getting traffic to your website anymore. HubSpot, when they really dug into this, they had this hypothesis and they dug in and looked at their own data over the last couple of years, and they have found that 42% of their prospects used AI to evaluate CRMs, which is, their primary search category. And that was the best single indicator of all segments, all roles. That was the number one indicator of, is this visit gonna convert into a lead? The factor here is that the weekly users that are searching on ChatGPT, so just ChatGPT alone, is 1 billion people per week. And I had to change this stat because when we started this deck a month or so ago, it was 900 million. So in a month, it grew by 10%. It's now 1 billion. So if you think that this whole topic of AEO doesn't matter, which I'm sure you do because you're here, but maybe some people that you need to convince that it matters, there is data to back it up. So the goal that we're working towards is really to get AI to be a good sales rep for you, if you think about it that way. So in order to do that, we have to understand a little bit of what's happening when a buyer actually asks ChatGPT a question about your category. So they type a prompt, the answer engine, ChatGPT, Gemini, Google AI mode, whichever one it is that they're using, they all fundamentally work similarly. They go out and they pull citations across the website. So your site, yes, but you see on this chart, your website is generally about 8% or less of the citations that get pulled, synthesized into an answer. So the vast majority of what influences the AI's answer is content that lives elsewhere. It lives off your site. So that's why AEO is a different discipline than SEO, because you need a truly multi-channel presence, not just a strong website to influence it. And that can be intimidating for some people. I know Chelsea on our team has talked a lot over the last year plus about the loss of control and whether that's good or bad. But the good news is that smaller brands actually have a better chance of showing up in AI search than in traditional Google search, because SEO was high, like I mentioned, it was highly based on domain authority. And what matters most to AEO is relevance. So deeply knowing your customers, understanding what they're asking more so than the technical authority of your site. So the tool, what it can do, it as a base level, and again, Ryan's going to demo all of this in detail, but there's three core things that it can do. It can help you measure how often your brand appears in AI-powered search answers across 3 platforms right now. They're working on adding more. But for right now, it's ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. So those are the big 3 LLMs that this tool is able to help you measure. How are you showing up for the things that you care about? how are your competitors showing up, and then understanding your gaps and helping you act on those things is really the biggest difference of why you might use a HubSpot's tool versus an outside tool, is because then you can do all this discovery and analysis and prioritization and actually act on it without leaving your HubSpot. So very streamlined workflow. Little technical details here that'll help you once Raian is in the demo. So the big piece of the puzzle when it comes to setting up your tool is setting up the prompts that you are going to track. And we could talk as much or as little as people want. If you have questions about this, throw them in the chat again. But in terms of how you go about deciding what prompts you want to track, Ryan will show you a couple different methods that you can do that within the tool, either have the tool suggest things for you or come up with manually import them. Like we mentioned, we've helped a lot of clients do search visibility playbooks in the last year to update their overall strategy of how am I going to show up when my buyers are searching for things that I care about. And so we have a lot of that work that we've already done for some of our clients. And so we can take that and upload it into the portal. So we don't have to start from scratch. The big things to know is that, Ryan, if you just want to keep on that one just for one more second. So 25 prompts you can track across like all three of those engines. So, and then 2,500 answers a month with Pro. What that means is that every day, the system is going out and rerunning those 25 prompts across those three answer engines. So 75 answers a day that it's generating and citations for, so you can see how am I doing. Now, I will say we don't recommend that you go in there every day and look at it because it's very volatile. What you're going to want to do is use it more for trends overall, like how are we moving the needle overall. And then on the enterprise, that just doubles. It's 50 prompts that you can track, and that adds up to about 5,000 answers a month that it's crawling when it runs those every day. Now you can go ahead, Rand. So really quickly, the three big areas, which again, Ryan will dive into this in more detail. We really just wanted you to have something on the slides to refer back to when you get the recording, and to kind of set the stage a little bit about what each of these core components that you'll see in the demo are. So first thing is that it'll show you your brand visibility for that prompt set that you've put in there. So those 25 or 50 that you're tracking. It'll show you not only how you're doing, but how your competitors are doing and what the sentiment is, right? So it doesn't matter if I show up, like if my mention rate is 74% there, great. What if they're all bad, right? What if they're all bad sentiment? So you have to take the two together. Then you can go to the next one, Rand. So then the citation analysis. So for each of those 25 prompts across the three platforms, you can really dive in and drill down and see what was that answer? How was my brand mentioned or not? How were my competitors mentioned or not? And what are the sources? What are the content formats that the answer is that it likes, that it's synthesizing into this answer? So is it my own content? Is it my competitors' content? Is it peer sites is often very heavy for industrials, like the kinds of businesses that we work with. So those are like everything that's not directly on your competitor side of yours, but is industry related. That's what a peer site is. And then the recommendations, like I mentioned, this is sort of the big differentiator that HubSpot has is you'll see a list of recommendations based on what you're trying to improve, and then you can implement them right within your HubSpot portal if you have, Marketing Hub, Sales Hub, whatever the recommendations relate to, you can then keep going in your workflow without leaving the tool. So that's really what this is, right? If you have if you're part of the answer, but then you can't convert that awareness into demand, into pipeline, it doesn't do a whole lot of good for your brand, right? So that's where the other pieces of HubSpot, the other pieces of your marketing strategy and your tactics come into play. So I think we all know this, but it's a good reminder, and this is just a nice visual to remind us that we can do all of these things right within our workflow. And this is just another little slide that I put in to help arm you if you are trying to case for why this matters. And again, like why we can't just end the work at showing up in discovery. We also then have to continue the work into the funnel. These are proof points, and HubSpot has been publishing a lot of research this spring around this about when they look at their customers in aggregate who have been getting. So some benchmark traffic from referrals, that traffic is more qualified. This slide says 2.7 times more marketing qualified conversions from that traffic. But I've actually just this week there was another study that HubSpot put out that said it's actually more like 4.4 times more likely to convert into a lead. So the traffic from AI referrals, because they're having these deep conversations, right? Again, it's conversations, not searching. That they're much more qualified, they're much more ready to buy. So their buying cycle is actually, HubSpot has found that it's about half as long. So they convert at a higher rate, and then they actually close at a higher or at a faster rate as well. So with that, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let Ryan talk now.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, so I'll take it over and I will try to walk through how to set up AEO for your portal. The first thing you need to do is to locate where AEO is. You'll have to come to this marketing tab, and then the first thing that you'll see is AEO. When you click on it, this is the page that'll bring you to. In here, not really much you have to do. You have to put your brand name. We're using Experience Inbound uh, for this specific demo, and then you just need to put the domain of your site. You hit get started, and then what it does in the back end is it's using AI to go to that website and understand everything that it can about you through your website. And then once that is done, it also tries to understand who your ICP is, audience is by itself. But then it will ask you to put some aliases for your brand. And the reason this matters is because when it's looking for your brand in those responses generated by the LLMs, these are the keywords that it's going to look for. So for example, if you're Amazon, it's not just, you don't want it to just look for Amazon, but rather AWS or Amazon Web Service. So you want to add all those keywords. And then if you have any additional domains, you can add them here as well. So that's pretty much it for the first step. And then when you hit next, now it's it's gonna research your industry information, it's gonna research your audience, business, your competitors, and then it's gonna use AI to from your website understand who your competitors are. Good reminder to check what the AI spits out, because what we realize is these are actually not our competitors for Experience Inbound. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna remove them, and then I'm gonna show you how to add new competitors.
While you're doing that, Ryan, I can just explain in case there's people on who aren't familiar. Experience Inbound is an annual conference that we co-host with another HubSpot partner. And so we're just using that for the demo. But because of that, it kind of got the tool got a little confused. They thought, oh, Weidert and Stream and all these, the co-hosting agencies are competitors for the event. That's why Ryan's telling it. No, actually, the competitors are other events, right?
So now that I've deleted them, in order to add competitors, all you do is this, and then click add competitors, and it'll open a pop-up. In here, HubSpot uses AI again. So all you have to do, one of our competitors is Content Gem. So you just put the name, and then when you hit auto fetch data, it's gonna try to figure out what the competitor domain and the brand variation, the aliases are by itself. So that all looks right. I'm just gonna add that, and that is exactly how you add competitors. Now, this is not the only place where you can add competitors. You can add them later as well. So I'm just gonna continue for now. Once you're done adding the competitors, it's again gonna do its research on the competitors, and the next thing it'll ask you to select is your product that you're trying to get responses from the LLMs and your ICPs. So these products and ICPs, we have it set in our brand kit. So it automatically pulls it from there, or you can add more to it as well. So if you want to add more product, you'd hit that, put the product, put the description. Or if you want to add more ICPs, you just put more ICPs and hit save, and it'll show up in here. Again, these are things you can do later as well after you're done with the initial onboarding. So for this, I'll just select experience inbound conference, and then I'm just gonna select small business owners. Now, what it does right now is now it has all the information. So what it's gonna do is try to use AI to generate a list of prompts that will get sent to all the three LLMs that Kelly mentioned, Perplexity, Gemini, and OpenAI. So these prompts right here are not the only prompts you can add. Again, you can edit them or you can add more to it. When you hit add more prompts, you're able to either add a prompt manually. You'd put the detail, you'd put your ICP, you'd put your product, and then you can also select the buyer journey phase. These are stuff you'll be able to, so let's say you have 50 to 100 prompts in there and you want to filter them. So you can use these buyer journey phases to filter those prompts to see analysis for those. The other option is to bulk upload. You can download their example CSV file of prompts, and then you can fill that up and then upload it as a CSV if you have a lot of prompts already noted down. And then once you upload them, they'll just show up here. So I'm just going to continue. So this is the part where it takes a little long, so 5 to 10 minutes to run. So what I'll do is I'll switch to our own AEO portal for Weidert, and I'm gonna show what it looks like. But before I do that, I just want to simplify what is happening in the backend. And I know this, we know this, because when we built that tool internally, we went through the same process. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna take those prompts and it's gonna ask each different LLM platform. So for example, I like to use this example, Toppers Pizza. If you don't know what Toppers is, it's a pizza store here in Appleton, local. If you're the owner, you're interested in people who are looking up what's the best pizza place in Appleton, and you want to show up there. So imagine yourself putting that prompt in OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Gemini, and then you get the raw responses, and then you're checking is toppers mentioned in those raw responses or not. That's exactly what's happening in the backend. It's all the prompts that you have shared. It's sending it to all those three LLM platforms, getting the raw responses, and it's trying to figure out, are you mentioned? Is your competitor mentioned? Is your brand cited? All that stuff. And then when it has all those information, it will bring you to this page, which is the AEO dashboard, is what they call it. So I'm just gonna walk through this a little slower than I have been because there's a lot of things in here. The first thing you're gonna see is your brand visibility, and you have multiple tabs here. So I'm gonna go one by one. In the dashboard, the first thing you'll see is your brand visibility. How is your brand getting mentioned or not? And then over time, how is it performing? Now, this is very volatile, as Kelly said, so it makes more sense to look at it as like a monthly cadence uh, or bi-weekly cadence more than like coming in here every day to check. And on the back end, it's gonna run those prompts every day so that the data is updated. The next thing, you have another tab here. Like Kelly mentioned, you don't want to just look at the brand visibility. You want to see the sentiment behind those responses as well. So take both of them together, and that will give you a clearer picture. The next thing is competitors. So the first thing you see is share of voice. Your competitors that you mentioned, like that you add, it's gonna tell you out of all those responses that it got, how much, what the percentage of each of these companies' brand voice is, share of voices. And then you also get historical time series data of your competitors' visibility going up or down over time. Next thing you see is citation analysis. So in here, you're looking at what are the top domains that were cited, the content types, the citations with brand mentions. So not just citations, but you were cited and your brand was mentioned in the response. You get a time series of that as well. So that's what you get in the overall dashboard. One thing that it shows here, which I really like, is this feature right here. It tells you you have blind spots in your AI visibility. When you click on it, it has a combination of all your ICP and product combination. So if, for example, you're not sure what prompt should I put, you can come in here and you can match your product with ICP that you're more interested in. For example, content strategy and is what I'm interested in, and my ICP would be industrial distributors. So when I hit track here, it'll give you two options to either generate more prompts that relates to these two groups with AI, or you can manually add those prompts. So you can do that right through here. Okay, so moving on, the next tab is prompts. Now, like I said, it sends each prompt to three different LLMs, and this is where you can come to see raw responses of each of those prompts. So for example, the first prompt that says, what are examples of successful industrial HubSpot implementation? It will give you a tab right here that gives you the raw response for ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. If your brand was mentioned, it would show up here, but it says in neither for this specific prompt, for these three LLMs, it wasn't meant, your brand wasn't mentioned. The next one, for example, it says the ChatGPT says that your brand was not mentioned, but Gemini says that your brand was mentioned on both the runs. Same for Perplexity. So just some like if you really want to get deep into it, you're able to come in here and see the raw response and do what you have to with that. The next is the recommendations. Now, this is prompt by prompt recommendation. I haven't played around with it a lot because it takes some time for it to generate based on the prompts. So after like a month or so, that's when it starts giving you a recommendation for each prompt. But it does have an overall recommendations tab, which I'll explain pretty soon, right after citation. So for the citations tab, you have citation performances versus competitors. This is basically telling you your citation rate versus your competitors in a time series analysis. And then, like I mentioned, you have citations with brand mention rate versus competitors. So if you're getting cited and your brand is getting mentioned. Next thing, sorry. Next thing is the citation composition, which is basically telling you citations by content type. Like Kelly mentioned, your website is only about 8% of the content that LLM cite. They're citing stuff from all over the place. So this is where you're able to see uh, the percentage of citations by content type. Where are those? Uh, where are LLMs citing those sources from? The next thing is just an overview of top citations. Again, you have seen most of this in the dashboard, but the thing that you can find here, which you can't find in the dashboard, would be your top owned citations. This is telling you which page in your website is getting cited the most for your prompts. And that is pretty much all the analysis that you get. Now, these are all numbers, right? The one thing that we have realized while we were using our own tool is that every time you ask an LLM a question, it's gonna probably mention you, but then you ask it again 5 minutes later, it's probably not gonna mention you. So it's super volatile, and that is why what matters more than these numbers is now that I have these numbers, so what? What do we do with it? How do we increase it or how do we make it better? That's where the recommendations feature come in, and I really like this just because I wasn't able to build it in our tool. Um,
Hey,
but
Raian,
yep.
real quick before we move off of citations, Stephanie had a question in the chat that I don't know the answer to either, but it says, do the prompts have to be verbatim what a user types? How close does it have to be to give you to like rank you in there in the results?
That is a good question. What we have figured out, and our process is a little different, is that we first research about the company or our client, and we try to understand what users might be asking for, and we try to build our queries similar to that. Not ex Obviously, we don't know what people are looking for, but as long as you are close to what users might be asking, it should be fine. Does that answer your question?
No, it, yeah, so from what we know right now, from understanding you, it doesn't have to literally be this characters,
Hmm.
but simple. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, the only other thing I would say to Stephanie is the prompt recommendations that HubSpot has in here do come from what context it has from all of your information in HubSpot, right? So like we mentioned brand kit, if you have done the work to set up your products and like robust descriptions of your ICP in the brand kit, like it's same rule as any AI, right? The more context you can give it, the better. The other thing about HubSpot's prompt recommendations, it's not only taking into account what you've configured in BrandKit or in this tool setup, it's also supposedly, I mean, we somewhat have to take their word on this, but we've heard it directly from the product team multiple times, is that it's also taking into account everything it knows from your CRM. So if it knows that like this is how you talk and this is the blogs that you have in your history and everything it knows about your brand and the content that you have and the context that you have in your CRM. It's supposedly taking all of that into account in addition to what you're configuring in the tool. So that helps make it more relevant than if you were just trying to guess at what people are asking.
Right. And you also want your prompt to be targeted towards what you're trying to market, right? You don't want it to be super vague. Um, so that matters as well.
Yeah, we always say start at the bottom of the funnel, right, Raian? Like,
Mhm.
because that's the closest thing to revenue. So start there, try to cover your bases, move the needle on the queries that have the most, closest tie to revenue, and then you can work your way up the funnel.
Yep. All right. If you have more questions, just keep them coming. I'll just explain the recommendations tab in the meantime. So yeah, so once you have those numbers, now you want to understand, so what do we do next? So that's where HubSpot has this recommendations tab. And I'm going to say that again. I really, really like this. This is where it's going to tell you based on the prompts that you have, based on all the content that you have in HubSpots, in your website, your blogs, your articles, all the stuff, what are you missing and what you should do. So, for example, the first title right here, it says top HubSpot partners for industrial companies. It says generate a blog post. So when you click on it, it's gonna tell you what the recommendation is in detail, and then what is driving this recommendation, what the associated prompts are for it to suggest this recommendation. And then it also tells you the top citations that's driving this recommendations. And then if you go to content, this is where you can generate a blog post through within HubSpot here, and you can edit them and then publish it through HubSpot. Um, the last thing is once you have that content uploaded, you're able to track the impact that it generates. One really cool thing that I found here is for Reddit, for example, here, how to change a website without losing the SEO of the old website. When I clicked into it, it actually told me to add a comment to this specific subreddit. So when I click on it, it takes me directly to Reddit, to that specific thread, and asks me to comment in here. And again, you can build the content right here and then post that comment in Reddit and then track how it's impacting your visibility score.
Yeah,
That
Ryan, one thing I discovered this week while, testing some of this for us, for ourselves was that you can also tie an existing URL
Hmm.
to one of its recommendations, which is nice. So it doesn't always have to be net new content. I could take an existing blog that I know we have that's similar and tie it to that prompt to start tracking and then make updates to that blog. And then I'll be able to track whether those updates had an impact.
Right. Yep. And that is a good point that you mentioned because we have been trying to prepare for this hug for the last 1 month. And within a month, just because it's in beta, there have been so many changes. They keep adding stuff. So we have been trying to keep up with that. So that is a good point to bring up. Um, Okay, so the last thing, now that I've gone through all the different tabs, is this when you come to this prompts tab, they have settings in here. I don't know why it's here, but when you hit that settings button, this is where you'll be able to update your brand settings or add more competitors, remove some competitors. You can check the schedule of when did it last run, when the next run is. You can update your ICPs. You can update your products. You can group the prompts that you have so that you can filter them, and then look at the analysis for certain groups that you're more interested in. And then lastly, they also have a Learn AEO, where they have short videos of how this AEO tool works. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then if you wanna, if you've already built something but you're not happy with it, you can redo this entire thing by deleting all the prompts and restarting onboarding. That's pretty much all they have for AEO. Kelly, if you want to add something, otherwise I'm happy to answer any questions.
We set up for our own. You can customize those. So, and you can tag a prompt to multiple groups. So, for example, if you had groups that were set up by like the type of prompt it is, like let's say, is it like ours, where is it a branded one? Is it a use case? Is it like our solution category? So those are some ways that we describe the categories of prompts that we have in there. Now, if I also wanted to add a vertical, let's say, I could do that. And you can have multiple group tags on a single prompt. So that helps you when you come in here. If you see at the top of Raian screen, there's those filters there. If I want to filter and just look at a query set for a prompt set for a certain group or a certain ICP or a certain location, you can do that. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with filters across HubSpot, and these are the filters that apply to AEO. So you can work with the tool however whatever you're focusing on that day or that week.
Mhm.
Um, we can open it up to Q&A. I do have just like 2 slides left. Otherwise, Ryan, if you want to flip back real quick, I have some resources for you guys and I have some tips on where to get started. I know this is there's probably people on this call that are in various stages of I've already played with this, or you're just at a loss, right? So here's my top 5 things that I would say to get started tomorrow, because as we know, like in 2008 when SEO was brand new, early movers had an advantage, and it's going to be similar with AI search. So biggest thing I can encourage you is don't be paralyzed, get started. So if you haven't already, gather questions your buyers are actually asking, right? So don't just rely on the suggested prompts, but make sure that those align, with or even start with questions your buyers are actually asking. Sales, you're crawling sales call transcripts. You're again, this is where the CRM, if you're using it to its fullest, you can crawl your CRM data, your unstructured data, to try to find out what are the pain points, what are the objections, what was said on that last sales call. So that's going to be the most important thing, is relevance. From a technical standpoint, make sure that bots aren't blocked from crawling your website. I know that's been a controversial topic in the past. Do I allow bots? Do I not? For AEO, if you're trying to show up in answer engine answers in LLMs, you're gonna have to allow bots to crawl your site because, as we know, they're AI agents, right? And they do like fast, light pages. That is one thing that's no different than traditional SEO, is fast, light pages. So even more important. Make sure your messages are consistent across your content, especially pricing. We mentioned that the AI tools are trying to build consensus across the internet about your brand and be, specifically answer those questions that they're being asked. And they're not going to be able to build consensus if you have your own conflicting information on your site, like say $10,000 here and $20,000 there for the same product. So make sure you do an audit, do that. Develop a system for content creation if you don't already have one. So obviously, we're a partner. We help a lot of our clients with content creation systems and strategy and execution. If you don't already have a system, either in-house or with a partner, where you can efficiently create content based on those questions that those buyers are asking, that's going to be really important to moving the needle. And then repurposing your content on high authority sites, especially the big three that HubSpot has found in their most recent research is that are really important to LLMs and answer engine are LinkedIn, YouTube, and Reddit. So shameless plug, we actually just had Kyle Denhoff from HubSpot do a two-part series on our podcast about YouTube specifically and how you can make the case for it with your executives and then how you can optimize for it. So check those out. We'll include that link in the follow-up. And then there's a lot out there. I mean, if you've been paying attention to the HubSpot fire hose about AEO this spring, there's a ton. These are my top recommendations of what to start with. The AEO grader tool is free. They've had that for a year or so. Use it to supplement because you can only track so much in the portal. The biggest thing I could say is use it to run your competitors through there, like because it's free, right? So you can set your industry and your terms and put any domain in the AEO grader tool and analyze that domain for that thing. So use the AEO grader free tool for that. Don't track competitor prompts in your tool that you're paying for. They also have an AEO guide, the state of AEO report, which I put the link in the chat, but it'll also be here in the PDF. And then HubSpot Academy has been doing some great work. Those little videos that Raian showed inside the tool. They also have an entire learning path that covers SEO and AEO. So it's nice to kind of see how it works together and where they're different. So that's a full learning path. And then Weidert, we've been talking about this, like we said, for 18 months or so. So we've got a number of things to put my favorites in there for you. We do have two questions in the chat, Ryan, then I know we got a couple minutes left, and Ryan and I can hang on longer if people have more questions. Do we know whether HubSpot plans to add Claude to the AEO tool in addition to those three? Yes, just this week, Barry, who was the guy who invented XFunnel, he said yes, that they're working on that. It's on their roadmap. It's in progress. They didn't give a timeline, but it's in progress. Copilot, I don't know about Reed. I haven't heard that directly mentioned. That one, my assumption is that might be a little trickier because it's private, right? Like you have to have a Microsoft license. It works within your Microsoft instance. So I'm guessing that one's maybe not on their roadmap. I don't even know if that's possible. And then we've got how AEO and AI help on campaigns. That is a good question. I would say my instinct is when you're looking at those recommendations, a way that I would think about putting them into practice is by grouping similar items, like if I know that, for example, improving B2B search visibility is a theme that Weidert's been talking about a lot. And that's somewhere where I'm not showing up that great and I want to show up more when my buyers are searching for things like that. I might group those recommendations or those prompts, like put a group tag on them that's based on that theme. You could do it that way and then go after those recommendations by filtering by group. That's the most obvious thing I can think of in a short answer. How much of the blog HubSpot generates do you typically keep? Is there a way to set length limits or training notes? There is. So if you have Content Hub, you can generate blog posts using AI. I will say that the brand kit is going to be really important in order, like configure a robust brand kit. You can now give brand kit examples of good writing. Like you can tell it, here's something that a human at our company wrote that we really liked and performed really well. So you can give it that like knowledge vault of information in your brand kit now, similar to how you could with like a Claude project. If you don't have Content Hub to do that right within HubSpot to do AI generated blog posts, you could, if you have Claude and you have a Claude project set up that's trained on your brand, you could also, pop out of the tool and then bring it back into HubSpot. So that'd be my tip there. We can give people a minute too if they think on and if you need to jump off, thank you so much for coming. And like we said, we'll send out the recording and a PDF. These are live links in the PDF, so you'll have links to all the resources. And if you think of anything else, any other questions, Ryan and our LinkedIn links were at the beginning as well. So feel free to send us some messages. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.